The real addiction behind your trades. The illusion of control. There's a moment in every trader's journey when the charts stop being about price and start being about pride. I remember staring at the screen one morning, not to analyze, not to prepare, but to prove. I needed the market to go where I thought it would. I wanted that candle to validate my opinion, to reward me for being smart. It wasn't about money anymore. It was about being right, and I know I'm not the only one. This obsession with being right. It's the hidden addiction almost no trader talks about. You might think you're addicted to trading, but look closer. Look at how you feel when you're wrong. Look at the stories you tell yourself when you take a loss. Look at the way you hesitate to cut a losing trade because it should come back. This isn't just about strategy. It's about ego. It's about identity. It's about control. Most traders blow their accounts not because they lack knowledge, but because they confuse accuracy with success. They equate being right with being skilled. They chase the high of calling the market perfectly, instead of building long-term consistency. The truth? The market doesn't care if you're right. It doesn't reward predictions. It rewards process. It rewards discipline. It rewards patience. But that kind of thinking feels boring when you're still addicted to the rush of being correct, when you're still chasing the validation of being the one who called it. If you're honest with yourself, you'll see this isn't just a trading problem. It's a you problem. And it's not a flaw. It's just something that's gone unchecked for too long. Something you've built your identity around, and now it's running your account. So in this video, we're going to look beneath the surface. We'll go into why the need to be right is so dangerous, how it forms, what it costs you, and what it really takes to break free from it. Because until you learn to let go of the need to win, you'll never learn how to trade to win. Chapter 1. Winning feels like validation. The first time I had a big green day, it wasn't about the money. I thought it was, but it wasn't. It was about what that win said about me. It said I was smart, that I understood something others didn't, that I had figured out the market, and deep down, maybe even deeper than I could admit at the time, it said I mattered. When you're new to trading, wins feel like proof. Proof that you have value. Proof that you're on the right path. Proof that you belong here. And the more personal the win feels, the more addicted you become to chasing that feeling again. But here's the danger when every win becomes a piece of your self-worth. Every loss becomes a threat to it. Suddenly it's not I took a loss. It becomes I failed. Or worse, I'm not good enough. So what do? You chase more wins. You try to avoid being wrong at all costs. You double down on your analysis, your indicators, your gut feelings. Anything to avoid the pain of being invalidated again. And you convince yourself that the goal is consistency or profitability. But really, you're chasing emotional safety. You're chasing identity. I once coached a trader named Anthony. Mid-30s, ex-engineer, brilliant mind, detailed journaler. He was technically excellent, but every time he had a losing streak, he spiraled. His self-talk became brutal. He'd say things like, "How could I be this stupid?" Or "Maybe I'm not cut out for this." But when he won, when he nailed a trade perfectly, he was on top of the world. His mood would shift, his confidence would explode, and he'd act like the market had just crowned him king. Not because he made money, but because, in his mind, he was right. He didn't need risk management. He needed emotional regulation. He needed to separate his identity from his outcomes. You might relate. Maybe you've noticed how a win puts you in a good mood, makes you feel proud, energized, even invincible, and how a loss makes you anxious, angry, ashamed. You're not trading a chart. You're trading your reflection. Your sense of self is riding on every tick. This is dangerous territory, because it creates an invisible pressure to be perfect, to always call the market, to always be right. And when perfection becomes the expectation, every loss becomes a crisis. Every misstep becomes a personal failure. But trading doesn't work that way. It never has. You will lose. You will be wrong. You will look foolish sometimes. That's not a reflection of you. It's the nature of the game. The best traders in the world aren't addicted to being right. They're addicted to following their plan. They know that long-term success doesn't come from accuracy. It comes from consistency. So how do you start detaching your identity from your results? Start by noticing the language you use after trades. Do you say I was right or that trade worked? That small shift matters. One is about ego. The other is about execution. Then, ask yourself, what does winning mean to me? What am I trying to prove when I need to be right? Am I trying to impress someone? Am I trying to silence a fear? Am I trying to feel like I'm finally good enough? Be honest. Because the more you understand what you're really chasing, the easier it becomes to stop chasing it in the wrong place. Here's the truth: validation doesn't come from a green panel. It comes from keeping your word to yourself, from trading your plan, from walking away when you said you would, from managing risk even when you're tempted not to. Winning is great, but it's not the goal. The goal is mastery. The goal is freedom. And that only comes when you stop needing the market to say, "You were right." Because once you let go of that need, you finally give yourself the space to grow. Chapter 2. Losses feel like rejection. There's a special kind of silence that follows a big red day. Not the kind of silence that calms you. The kind that unsettles you. You stare at the screen. You stare at the numbers. You scroll through your trades again and again like maybe this time they'll say something different. But they don't. And in that silence, a voice creeps in. Quiet. Sharp. Cruel. You did it again. You're never going to make it. You don't belong here. See? When you're addicted to being right, losses don't just hurt financially. They wound you. They don't just mark a bad trade. They mark you, the trader, as wrong, as inadequate, as someone who still doesn't get it. It's not just disappointment. It's rejection. That's why losses feel so unbearable for some traders. It's not about the money. It's about what the loss means. And the meaning is rarely kind. There was a trader I worked with. Her name was Lila. She had a great strategy. Smart, simple, high probability setups. But the moment she took a loss, she unraveled. It wasn't just a dip in confidence. It was a collapse. She'd avoid looking at her platform for days. She'd replay the trade in her mind like a movie she couldn't turn off. I asked her once what the loss meant to her. She paused for a long time and said, "It means I failed. It means I'm back at square one." But here's what I told her, and maybe you need to hear this too. A loss does not put you at square one. A loss does not erase your progress. A loss does not define who you are. Trading is not school. There are no grades, no report cards. No one is giving you a gold star for accuracy. The market doesn't care if you're right. It only cares if you survive. So why do losses cut so deep? Because for many of us, being wrong wasn't safe growing up. Being wrong meant punishment, shame, embarrassment. Maybe you had to be perfect to be accepted. Maybe mistakes weren't allowed. Maybe love felt conditional. So now, as a trader, when the market says you were wrong, it triggers those old wounds, those memories, that pain. But you're not that child anymore. You're an adult. And you're allowed to be wrong now. You must be wrong sometimes if you want to succeed. Because being wrong is part of the game. The market is not rejecting you. It's giving you feedback. And feedback is a gift. If you're mature enough to receive it. That's what separates a professional from an amateur. Not how often they win, but how well they lose. So what can you do? Start with how you respond to a red trade. Before you spiral, stop. Breathe. Say this out loud: this loss is not who I am. It is a moment. It is data. And I can learn from it. Then ask yourself 3 questions. Did I follow my plan? Was this loss within my risk tolerance? What can I do better next time? If you followed your plan and the loss was within your rules, celebrate that. You executed. You were a professional. And if the loss came from breaking your rules, don't judge yourself. Just own it, be honest, make adjustments, then move on. Carrying shame does nothing but cloud your next decision. The goal is not to eliminate losses. The goal is to remove the emotional poison around them. Once you stop seeing losses as rejection, you can finally see them for what they are: a necessary cost of growth, a part of your tuition in this strange, demanding profession. The losses are not pushing you out, they're inviting you in, but only if you're willing to sit with the discomfort and grow through it. Chapter 3. The need to control everything. I used to think that if I could just get good enough, I could control the outcome. That if I read enough books, studied enough charts, or backtested every setup 100 times, I could make the losses go away. I thought mastery meant control. But trading doesn't reward control. It punishes the illusion of it. It took me years to learn that lesson. And some very expensive reminders. Because every time I tried to control the market, it slipped through my fingers like smoke. Every time I thought this setup has to work, it didn't. And every time I added to a loser thinking I could force a reversal, I paid the price. Why do we do this? Why is the need for control so strong in traders? I think it's because uncertainty feels like danger. Most of us didn't grow up learning how to sit calmly in the unknown. We learned to grip tighter, to fix, to force, to take action, even when inaction would have been smarter. And so we bring that energy into the market. We overtrade. We cut winners early. We chase. We move stops. Not because we're impulsive, but because we're uncomfortable with not knowing. There was a trader I coached named Daniel. He was brilliant, math background, years of experience, incredible work ethic. But he had one major flaw. He couldn't stand not knowing what would happen next. He'd call me after a loss and say, "I just didn't expect that drop. It wasn't in the cards." And I'd have to remind him, the market doesn't care about your cards. It deals its own. Eventually, he realized something that changed his entire approach. He said, "My job isn't to predict. My job is to participate with discipline." That's it. That's the shift. You can't control what the market does, but you can control how you engage with it. You can control your entries, your exits, your risk, your response. And that's more than enough. But it takes humility. It takes letting go. Letting go of needing to be right. Letting go of needing a perfect setup. Letting go of needing to know what happens next. You don't have to know. You just have to manage your edge. The irony is, the more you try to control everything, the more out of control your results become. But when you accept uncertainty and build systems to navigate it, things stabilize. Your mind calms. Your trades improve. And you stop reacting. You start responding. So here's what helped me. First, I built rules that could operate without me. I stopped deciding in the moment and started deciding in advance. Second, I started journaling my emotional reactions, not just my trades. I noticed that the moments I felt most out of control were always the ones where I wanted certainty the most. And third, I started reminding myself, out loud, before every session, I am not here to control the market. I am here to manage risk. Control is a fantasy. Participation is a choice. And once you choose to participate with humility, with discipline, and with structure, you start to feel something you haven't felt in a long time. Peace. Not because the market became predictable, but because you stopped trying to make it that way. Chapter 4. Winning feels like identity. There's a moment that happens after a big win. You close the trade. You see the green on the screen. And for a split second, you don't just feel proud. You feel validated. Like the market has confirmed that you're good enough, that you belong here, that you finally did something right. But here's the danger. When winning starts to feel like identity, losing begins to feel like failure of character. And that's a trap. For years, I chased wins not just for profit, but for self-worth. When I won, I felt confident, smart, even superior. When I lost, I felt stupid, weak, like I didn't deserve to be in the game at all. I wasn't just tracking performance. I was measuring myself. And the more I tied my value to my results, the more volatile I became. It wasn't about trading anymore. It was about proving something. I remember one month I hit a hot streak. 5 green days in a row, then 7, then 10. I was convinced I'd turned the corner. I thought I'd cracked the code. My self-esteem shot through the roof. But then the losses came, as they always do. One trade slipped, then another. Then the account dipped below a psychological line I didn't even know I had drawn. And just like that, the confidence evaporated. I didn't just feel like I'd lost money. I felt like I'd lost myself. That's when I realized the problem wasn't the pandle. The problem was how much of my identity I'd built around it. Winning had become who I was, so losing felt like erasure. There's a trader I know, Sarah. Quiet, disciplined, consistent. She once told me something that changed how I see this. She said, I used to think I was a great trader because I was winning. Now I know I'm a great trader because I can keep showing up even after I lose. That hit me hard, because real traders, the ones who survive this game, don't tie their self-worth to outcomes. They tie it to process. It's not about whether you won today. It's about whether you executed your edge, whether you stuck to your risk, whether you stayed present, calm, and in control. The market doesn't care who you are. It doesn't care how badly you need a win. It doesn't care if you've had a rough week or if this trade has to work. And when you realize that, really internalize it. You stop trying to win your identity from the market. You stop begging it to tell you who you are. You already know. You're someone who shows up. You're someone who learns. You're someone who keeps going, even when it's hard. And that's worth more than any green number on a screen. Chapter 5. The rules were there for a reason. I used to write rules in my journal like they were sacred. Never trade the open. Always respect your daily max loss. Stop after 3 trades. Wait for confirmation. Don't trade when angry. I had rules for everything. And every time I broke them, I had a good reason. Or at least, I thought I did. But looking back now, I can see something clearly. The rules weren't there to restrict me. They were there to protect me. They were the version of me that could think clearly, trying to save the version of me that couldn't. You don't write rules on a good day because you're bored. You write them because, deep down, you know who you become when emotion takes over. And I knew who I became. I became impulsive. I chased. I got angry. I overtraded. I revenge traded. I doubled size to make it back. I froze when it was time to cut the loss. I broke every rule I had written. And then I justified it. I'd tell myself, this setup is too good, or just this once, or I can fix it. But those were just stories I told myself to escape the discomfort of discipline. Rules don't fail you. You fail the rules, and then blame the rules for not working. There was a week where I followed every rule I had. I traded light, waited for A+ setups, stopped trading once I hit my goal. And the results? Modest, yes, but steady, green every day. Then came Monday. I felt a little overconfident. I sized up, took a setup before the level I'd marked, ignored the 2% daily drawdown. And when the trade went against me, instead of stopping, I fought. I ended the day down 5 times what I allowed. And the worst part? I knew it was preventable. That night, I opened my trading journal. and read the rules I'd written to myself just weeks earlier. There it was, in my own handwriting: if you break your rules, you break your edge. If you break your edge, you break your account. If you break your account, you break your future. The rules weren't the problem. My ego was. I wanted to be free, to act on instinct, to do what felt right. But freedom in trading isn't about acting on impulse. It's about creating structure so you can operate freely within it. There's a trader I mentor now. His name's Eli, just 23, bright, ambitious, always searching for the next best strategy. But no matter what system he used, he kept blowing up. Why? Because he never followed any system long enough for it to matter. One day I asked him, if I gave you a rule that guaranteed you'd never blow another account, would you follow it? Even if it meant boring trades for the next 6 months? He hesitated. And that told me everything. Traders don't just need rules. They need respect for the rules. Rules are your anchor in chaos. They're the voice of clarity in a storm. They are your past self looking out for your future self. So write them down. And then follow them when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Because every time you follow a rule, you strengthen your discipline. And every time you break one, you weaken your edge. The market doesn't owe you success. It gives you windows of opportunity. Your rules decide whether you walk through them, or slam the door on yourself. Conclusion: the real edge is emotional discipline. In the end, trading isn't just about charts and setups and statistics. It's about your ability to sit in discomfort. To feel the need to be right, rise inside, not act on it. To feel fear, hope, ego, still follow your plan. That's the real edge. Because the truth is, most traders don't fail because their strategy doesn't work. They fail because they abandon the strategy when it starts to feel uncomfortable. They override their own system just to satisfy a craving. The craving to feel smart, to win, to prove something. You can't master the market if you haven't mastered yourself. That was the lesson I ran from for years. I thought I was hunting for a better entry, a tighter stop, a more consistent signal. But really, I was just trying to avoid the pain of being wrong. Let me say this clearly. You're not addicted to trading. You're addicted to the illusion of control, to the high of a green day, to the relief that comes when you feel validated by the market. But none of that is sustainable. The traders who make it, they learn to accept uncertainty. They take losses without personal judgment. They stick to the process even when the outcome is uncomfortable. They learn that the market is not a place to prove anything. It's just a mirror. It shows you who you are, and where your emotional work is still unfinished. So if you want to just as a trader, but as a person, the work isn't just on your strategy. It's on your mindset. It's on your relationship with failure, risk, boredom, and the need to be right. Start asking yourself this: what am I really chasing when I click the button? Am I trading from clarity, or from compulsion? Am I here to learn? If this video spoke to you, I'd love to hear your story in the comments. What part hit hardest? What did you recognize in yourself? Because trading can be a lonely game, but you're not alone in this journey. And I'll leave you with this quote from Mark Douglas, the author of Trading in the Zone. The best traders think in probabilities. They don't need to be right to make money. They only need to follow their process. Let that sink in. Being right feels good, but being disciplined, that's what pays.